الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا بما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Continuing along with the book تعظيم العلم, how to respect or appreciate sanctified knowledge. We're on the sixth chapter, and that is to رعاية فنونه في الأخذ وتقديم الأهم فالمهم. The taking care to study the different knowledges in the Islamic knowledges and putting forth the most important first. If you can say, like if there's a beautiful painting or a beautiful picture, right? The more you can see this picture or the painting, the more you can appreciate it. And if the painting is covered up or the picture is covered up and you can only see part of it, you don't appreciate its beauty as much, right? And that's the same thing with knowledge. So the more knowledge you have, the more access to the different branches of knowledge you have, the bigger picture of the painting you can see. The more you appreciate the beauty of that painting of knowledge, right? And likewise, if your knowledge or the sciences of knowledge that you know are limited, you'll have less appreciation for the knowledge in total, right? So he starts off with a statement by Ibn Jawzi. قال ابن الجوزي رحمه الله تعالى في سيد الخاطر جمع العلوم ممدوح. Ibn Jawzi, one of the great scholars who wrote the book Sayyid al-Khatir, the kind of like some thoughts, collection of thoughts that he wrote, really beautiful advice and nasiha. He says that collecting knowledge, different knowledges, different sciences of knowledge is something that's praiseworthy, something that's beautiful, mamduh. And the more knowledge one studies and appreciates, the more capable he is of understanding the deen and explaining the deen. Right? So that's the importance of gathering the different types of knowledges. And he also said, من كل فن خذ ولا تجهل به فالحر مطلع على الأسرار. Take from every science and every knowledge in every field that which you should not be ignorant of, for verily the free person, the one who is hur, he has the capabilities to understand, he is able to see the secrets, basically. Like the more freedom you have, the more knowledge you have, the more freedom you have and understanding you have, and the capability that you can bring out the hidden truths, the hidden knowledges, right, and understanding, some knowledge that are not available to everybody else. So the more sciences you study in terms of like aqidah, fiqh, hadith, usul al-fiqh, mustalah hadith, all the different knowledges, putting them together, it gives you like a whole beautiful picture of Islam in general, and you're able to see and distinguish, the right from the wrong much easier. ويقول الشيخ شيوخنا محمد بن مانع رحمه الله تعالى في إشاد الطلاب. One of his teachers, and the teacher of teachers, he says, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Mani', may Allah have mercy upon him, says in Irshad al-Talib, and the guidance of the student to the student, ولا ينبغي للفاضل أن يترك علما من العلوم النافعة التي تعين على فهم الكتاب والسنة إذا كان يعلم من نفسه قوة على تعلمه. He's saying that it's not something befitting of an honorable person to leave any type of knowledge that he's capable of learning, any type of beneficial knowledge that he's capable of learning, if he has the ability to learn it, right? He should gather that knowledge. The more ability you have, the more knowledge you should gain. And then he says, وَلَا يُسُغْ لَهُ أَن يُعِيبُ الْعِلْمِ الَّذِي يَجْهَلُهُ ويزري بعالمه فإن هذا نقص ورذيلة فالعقل ينبغي له أن يتكلم بعلم أو يسكت بحلم وإلا دخل تحت قول القائل أتاني أن سهلا ذم جهلا علوما ليس بيعرفهن سهل علوما لو قرأها ما قالها ولكن الرضا بالجهل سهل. So he's saying that the second part, and it's not also befitting to criticize other knowledges, right? So right here, this Imam, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Mani', he's giving us two golden rules when it comes to knowledge. The first one, he's saying that any knowledge you're capable of getting, get it, right? Build upon it, understand it, learn from it. And the second rule he's saying is don't criticize others or other knowledges that you're ignorant of, right? And this is the case for example, somebody might become proficient in one knowledge, in one field of Islamic studies, and he's ignorant of another knowledge, and he criticizes that knowledge. For example, he might be proficient in recitation of the Quran, and he criticizes the person of Nahu or the person of Fiqh, or something like that. So he's saying that a logical person, he speaks if there's a benefit to it, and he's quiet if there's no benefit, right? If you have knowledge, you speak, it's good to contribute, and if you don't have anything good to say, be halim, forbearing, and silent, quiet, right? We should, as Muslims, appreciate all the knowledges, the Islamic knowledges, because they all have benefit in it, right? And we should not criticize other knowledges that we are ignorant of. You try your best to gain knowledge in any field you can, but don't criticize others. If, for example, you don't have a desire to study a certain field of knowledge, you don't criticize that person for majoring in that field of knowledge, because they all build upon each other. And then he quoted a poem saying that it's easy for the ignorant person to criticize, right? But it's not easy to, and if that person had actually really gotten knowledge, he wouldn't criticize. He would appreciate it. He wouldn't dislike other knowledges. So it's always important to respect knowledge wherever you are and wherever it comes from, and to increase your knowledge the best you can. وإنما تنفع رعاية فنون العلم باعتماد أصلين أحدهما تقديم الأهم فالمهم مما يفتقر إليه المتعلم في القيام بوظائف العبودية لله. He's saying the way to benefit from the different sciences of knowledge is to depend upon two major foundations. The first foundation is that you put forth the most important knowledge first, that which you are in need of studying to establish your religion and worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So for example, if a person doesn't know the basics of fiqh, how to offer wudu correctly, or salat correctly, right? Or what the pillars of salat or the sunan or wajibat of salat, and he goes and starts focusing on ilm al-rijal or jarh wa ta'dil, like criticizing the scholars, or these type. It's a science of hadith that's very specialized, right? Then this is person, he's not being logical, because he's taking something less important for something more important. On the Day of Judgment, you'll be asked about your salat. You won't be asked about this person or that person, right? In the grave, when you get to, ask the questions of what your deen is, who is the Prophet ﷺ, who is your Lord, and then in the Yawm al-Qiyamah, when you get asked about the deeds you do, it won't really matter who this person is or that person is, but it'll matter if you know how to make wudu correctly or offer salat correctly. One of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, Hudhayfa, it's reported in Bukhari, he saw a man praying incorrectly, making his sujood and ruku' incorrectly. And he called this man and he said, how long have you been praying like this? And he said, for 40 years. And Hudhayfa, the Sahabi, radiallahu anhu, he said, if you have died upon this, you would have died upon other than the fitrah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And he is very serious, like almost outside of Islam, because he didn't know how to offer salat correctly. So some people, they get occupied with studying these minute sciences, and they forget aqeedah, they forget fiqh, they forget the basics of their deen. They don't have no idea about it, and they're wasting their time studying something that won't give them any benefit in the akhirah. Right? So that's the first asl, to put forth the most important knowledge first. والآخر أن يكون قصده في أول طلبه تحصيل مختصرا في كل فن حتى إذا استكمل أنواع العلوم النافعة نظر إلى ما وافق طبعه منها وآنس من نفسه قدرة عليه فتبحر فيه سواء كان فنا واحدا أم أكثر. So he's saying the second point to do is to put your intention to try to memorize and understand the summarized versions of the different knowledges in the different fields. So in every fan, every science of Islam, there's usually like a mukhtasar, which is a summarized version of that subject, right? In fiqh, every madhab has it. There's a beginning text, beginner's level text of fiqh that you should try to memorize or understand at least and comprehend completely, right? That has all the basics of fiqh, from the tahara, the type of water, all the way to the ahkam of business and marriage and divorce and etc., right? They usually start with a small book that has one statement of the qawl al-rajih, the correct opinion in the madhab, to make it easy for the student. So you learn that, you master it, and then you can move on. He says to build upon that. In each field you should do the same. In Aqidah, a small text. In Fiqh, a small text. In Hadith, the 40 Hadith we mentioned. And those are the main subjects really, if you can build upon that. First and foremost, most of the scholars, they recommend for a student of knowledge, if you're trying to go on the path of seeking knowledge, is to memorize the book of Allah, because that's the greatest of speech and the best of knowledge, right? And then after that, you can do the basics, or alongside, you can do the basics of fiqh, aqidah, and hadith. And then you can do there's grammar, or mustalah hadith, or usul al-fiqh, right? So each subject that you want to study and master, always start with a small text first, learn it, if you can memorize it, at least understand it completely, then you can move on to the intermediate level or the advanced level. So these are the two foundations you need for attaining the beneficial knowledge. The first one, to put the most important, prioritize which knowledge you're seeking first. And the second one, picking a small text in that knowledge and mastering it, right? And then he said, once you've done this in the basic fields of the different sciences, you can specialize in a field and go, some people, they love the knowledge of tafsir. That's their most appreciated subject. So they can go and become scholars in tafsir, right? Because they have the basics in fiqh and aqidah and hadith and Arabic and grammar, and mustalah hadith and usul al-fiqh. Then they can go on and specialize. Like some people, they love fiqh. That's their specialty. That's what they love to study the most. So they can go and become scholars in that field if they'd like. But at least have a foundation, a strong foundation in the different sciences. Also, the most important thing, if I ask you what's the most important knowledge, what would you answer? Aqidah. And that's specific. Also, in general, what would be the most important thing to study, do you believe? Tawheed is the most important, yeah. But in a general statement, it's basically the things that you use in your daily life, that you need on a daily basis, that you always use to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So first and foremost, obviously your creed, knowing the arkan of iman, right? Knowing the basic principles of your belief system and aqidah, right? Secondly, obviously your salat, your wudu. You make wudu and salat how many times a day? You'll be so surprised to know that there are some people that are actually scholarly in certain fields of Islamic studies, but they're ignorant of the basics of fiqh. And this is a disgrace, because if you are a scholar in any type of field of Islamic studies, you should first and foremost know how to do your fara'id correctly, and the salat is the most important thing. It's the first thing you get asked about on the Day of Judgment, right? So knowing the fiqh, knowing the things that you need every day to interaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's the most important thing to study first and foremost. Then he goes and he says another advice, quoting a poet, ومن تيار الشعر الشناقطة قول أحدهم وإن تريد تحصيل فن تممه وعن سواه قبل انتهاء مه وفي ترادف العلوم منعجا إن توأمان استبقا لن يخرجا. So basically this is, it says من تيار الشعر. Tiyar is like something flying around basically. He means the poetic verse that they don't know the author of this verse, but it's a widespread verse and very popular. The meaning, rough translation, is that if you want to achieve a knowledge in a certain field, don't mix other knowledges with it. وَعَنْ سِوَاهُ قَبْلَ انْتِهَاءِ مَهْ. Don't mix another knowledge with it until you've completed that knowledge. Mah is meaning stop, don't do it, something that's disliked. وَفِي تَرَادِفِ الْعُلُمِ الْمَنْعُ. And combining too many knowledges at once has been forbidden, according to some. إن توأمان استبقا لن يخرجا. So for example, if a woman is carrying two twins, in her belly, they won't come out at the same time, right? It's one after the other. So this Imam is saying that basically when you study knowledges and you build upon knowledges, focus on one at a time first. Master one, then move to the second one. One of the problems of the modern educational system is that they combine so many knowledges together at one time. So you become like a jack of all trades but a master of none, right? You have a general knowledge of this, general knowledge of that, but you really don't have a deep knowledge because they pile so much on you from a young age. You study 5 or 6 subjects daily, right? And this is kind of antithetical to the traditional method of studying. When you look at the Sahaba, radiallahu anhu, what did they focus on mostly? Quran. They only had the Quran basically, right? That was their main focus. Then the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, right? So they mastered, they had the knowledge ingrained in their hearts. They truly understood the Quran. They lived according to it. They mastered. Then they got the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, right? They already mastered the Arabic language. But the Shanaqita, the one that, where this poem came from, you'll find that in the traditional mahdara, like out in the desert and stuff where they have the old sheikh system, they still to this day follow this methodology. Like they'll take one text, he'll read it to the scholar, the sheikh, and the sheikh will correct him in it. He'll memorize the text, he'll understand it with explanation, and then only then will the sheikh move on to the next text, right? So they master. And you find, subhanAllah, when they get to teenage age, they memorize so many books, and they memorize it until they're old. Even like the trash man or the the bread shop owner or like these people that you won't think anything. They memorize the Quran, they memorize Alfiya bin Malik, they memorize Mukhtasar al-Khalil and the Fiqh al-Maliki. They've memorized so many books, and they're just like ordinary people. They're not even they don't consider themselves scholars, And then the other, mashallah, the ones that are like really students of knowledge, apparently from what I've heard, they've memorized like the 6 books of hadith along with the Quran and the 10 recitations, and then books in fiqh and the books in language. But it's because of the system they adopted. They took one knowledge at a time, mastered it, and kept moving on and kept building and building. Also, the more you memorize, the more you build this, the easier it is to get more knowledge, right? And then, yes.
To that point, I was taking for 5 years a class from morning until Salatul Dhuhr, and we're doing Arabic and Hadith and Fiqh.
Okay.
5 years we didn't complete the Quran not even once. Hadith we didn't complete the 2 books of Riyadh al-Salihin.
Yeah.
And Fiqh with Umdatul Ahkam, we reached up to, I think we were just in the book of Tahara. So 5 years. So
yeah, and yeah, but you didn't complete. So that's the difference. So the next point he says, وَمَنْ عَرَفَ مِنْ نَفْسِهِ قُدْرَةً عَلَى الْجَمْعِ جَمْعًا وَكَانَتْ حَالُهُ اسْتِثْنَاءً مِنْ الْعُمُومِ. So he said, if somebody knows about themselves that they're able to do more than one knowledge at a time, then they can do so if they know their capabilities, right? But he said this is kind of an exception to the rule. It's not the norm. So in general, you want to take a book, complete it and finish it, and move on to the next book and master it and understand it. I don't like how so many people start something and they don't finish it, and they move on to another subject and another subject, and then by the time after, like she said, 5 years have gone by and they didn't finish even one book. That's not the correct methodology. In 5 years, the scholar, he was saying in another lecture, in 7 years they become scholars. The ability to start giving fatwa and teach, in his time. Now, unfortunately, we spend 12 years up to through high school, and then we do the college 4 years sometimes, and then we do graduate school another couple of years and a PhD, and then subhanAllah, even in Islamic studies I'm talking about, and the people still have a deep knowledge, right? Because they are not following the correct methodology. That's why, inshallah, we're taking this advice so we can try our best to follow the correct methodology. And also the scholars say sadadu wa qaribu, try your best. Sometimes the ideal is not available, but you can try your best to do something like that. You can have set a goal for yourself in memorizing the Quran, or inshallah after this book we'll try to pick a book in fiqh maybe and go through the whole book, a small mukhtasar in fiqh, so we can have at least all the abwab of fiqh and it's called malaka. Malaka means your capabilities and ability to drive rulings and understanding of the deen. The more you build upon these small knowledges, the more that increases, and then you can go into the bigger and deeper knowledges, right, and gain a better understanding of the deen completely. So these are the goals we have, inshallah. That's the main points. So we say is to always take the most important knowledge first and foremost, those things that you need in your life. Don't criticize other knowledges. Some people, they get proficient in a certain knowledge and they criticize other knowledges. All the Islamic knowledges that help you understand the book of Allah and the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ are beneficial, so there's no need to criticize them. And keep yourself occupied with that which is going to benefit you and your dunya and your akhirah, right, in terms of knowledge itself. So if I tell you to seek the understanding of tawheed, aqidah and fiqh, that's what you should focus on, that's what you study, that's what you learn. Don't go start asking questions for things that are not beneficial. Some people, they give the example of the story of the cave, Surah Al-Kahf. What color was the dog? Or what kind of dog was it? That's not really going to benefit you in your deen or your dunya, really. If you know the color of the dog or the make of the dog, how is that really going to benefit you, right? So, certain things like this, some people, they ask questions or they talk about other scholars and other, people's mistakes and stuff like that. All these are not really going to benefit you too much. And when it comes to the end of the day, it's what you know about Allah, the Prophet ﷺ, and your deen that's going to benefit you. So focus your time and energies on taking the most beneficial, because time is so limited, right? You want to go to the Day of Judgment and say, Allah, I tried my best to learn what's most pleasing to you. Please accept from me. You don't want to be involved in qila wa qal, saying this and that, backbiting, wasting time. Some people, I remember, some students, they didn't even know Arabic language, and they were getting, books in Jarh wa Ta'dil, which is a specific science in terms of criticism and, like supporting the narrators of hadith. That usually only the scholars of hadith go into these books. And this person that didn't even know the Arabic language yet was, buying these books and carrying it around. And, it's not, learn at least how to speak Arabic and read correctly first, and then the Quran and the Sunnah and then the fiqh. And then inshallah in the future you can become a scholar in hadith, alhamdulillah. But pick what's most important first. Inshallah we'll stop there. That's the chapter number 6. If you guys have any questions or comments, jazakumullah khairan. So what do you guys do for seeking knowledge outside the class? Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. Alhamdulillah. Do you guys all have like a schedule, for example, for reading the Quran and memorizing the Quran? No? That's something you can start, inshallah. Even if it's like, not everybody has the capabilities or the time to memorize, but at least try something. Even if you do one ayah a day or a week or whatever, something you can build upon, right? If you do one ayah a day, that's 300 something a year. That's all Surah Al-Baqarah and plus some of Ali Imran. And you keep going like that, inshallah, and building upon it. Usually when you memorize one a day, it gets easy, and you can start doing 2 a day, 3 a day, 4 a day, half a page, 1 page. Whatever is easy for you. Just make it a part that you try to memorize the book of Allah. And reading it should be a part of your daily routine, no matter what. Have like a certain time every day to read a certain amount of the Quran, either before you sleep, when you wake up in the morning, something like that you can do every day, not like neglect it, inshallah. And then we can talk about other sciences, inshallah. But that's a good thing, to make the Quran a part of your daily life. If you want to get like a book of hadith, first and foremost, the 40 hadith of Imam An-Nawawi to start with, and we can go on, inshallah. Also, to read the seerah is very good for your iman and understanding the context of the Quran. So if you want to make that a part of your life too. These are just simple things that you can do. If you, inshallah, we can talk in private or later if you want to do like the specific things in terms of, becoming a student of knowledge and memorizing text and stuff like that. We can do that. But this is something that every Muslim can do, the basics in reading the Quran, reading the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, coming on time to class. These things are something everybody can do. So, any more questions or comments, inshallah? Suggestions? Yes.
So you said once somebody's like seeking knowledge and stuff, like they want to get into a concentration like you would in like secular school, and you said they have to have a strong foundation on every other aspect. Like how strong does that foundation have to be in order for them to like have a concentration?
It depends on how like knowledgeable the person wants to be. So if you have the basics down in Aqidah and fiqh and hadith and maybe even a little bit of grammar and usul al-fiqh and mustalah hadith, then you can go on and like expand into something that you're proficient. And once you alhamdulillah, the scholars have served our deen, and that they've made for every field like a metin, an authentic narration or text that all the scholars are agreement upon. This is like the best beginning level book in this field, right? So it's easy for us to know which field, or all the different major fields that you can learn these basic texts from, and they're not large at all. It's something anybody can do, So once you have that, I think at least those basics, then you can go on to like more of a specialized field if you like, and well, yeah. Which field were you thinking of specializing in? Quran, the reading or the tafsir, or both? Tafsir, mashallah, yeah. So see, then in tafsir, that would require also a strong foundation in the Arabic language, in the hadith, in the grammar, in the sarf, and so these other knowledges will help you into achieving that goal, So they all, like, mashallah, the deen is like halaqat, they're all like interrelated, the knowledges, subhanAllah, they intermingle and they relate to each other and they help build upon each other. So tafsir, you said? Because where the narrations of the tafsir usually come from? The Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba, the Tabi'een. So you need to know that sanad, is that a correct, authentic sanad explaining this ayah, or is it weak? Because it makes a big difference. So if you have a correct, authentic sanad explaining this ayah, then that's like, there's no need to debate it, right? But if there's a weak hadith or a weak narration, then we can go to the language, the Arabic language, and there could be room for disagreement or different explanations of that ayah. If there's a correct narration from the Prophet ﷺ or the Tabi, and it's the Sahaba, and it is like, basically known to be said by them, then khalas, that means the ayah, there's no need to go further in terms of, trying to find different explanations about it. That's like the clear truth right there. But if the narration is not authentic, then there's more room, Also the Arabic language, the linguistic meanings, the subhanAllah, the tafsir is really like an ocean. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even to this day, there's still new tafsirs coming out, new miracles, like it's a continuous discovery of the Quran, and how many hundreds of different tafsir there are already. So, yeah, if you, inshallah, you build up to get to that. So next week we'll do the chapter 7 and maybe chapter 8 if you want to try to read it in Arabic to get an idea, practice. Inshallah, we'll continue. Alright, subhanakallah bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.